The fuel gauge read empty, and we were still 20 miles from base. That's the moment you realize you're going to die. Not might die, going to die. Because a helicopter doesn't glide like a fixed-wing aircraft. When the engine quits, you drop. Maybe you can auto-rotate if you have altitude and somewhere clear to land. But over triple canopy jungle at 200 feet, you're just falling with style until the trees catch you. My crew chief looked at me. His eyes said everything. We both knew. I was Chief Warrant Officer David Martinez, 1st Cavalry Division, flying UH-1 Hueys out of LZ Sally and I Corps. 24 years old. From East L.A., grew up watching helicopters fly over the city. Knew from age 12 I wanted to fly. Joined the Army at 18, went to flight school at Fort Rucker, got my wings in '66. Vietnam seemed like the adventure of a lifetime. Flying helicopters in combat. Real missions. Real purpose. Better than anything I could have done back in L.A. Nobody tells you that flying in Vietnam means watching your friends burn alive in aircraft that shouldn't have been flying. That it means making impossible decisions about who lives and who dies based on fuel levels and enemy fire. That it means carrying the weight of every soldier who didn't make it home because you couldn't reach them in time. Nobody tells you that helicopters aren't invincible, pilots aren't immortal, and fuel gauges don't lie. I arrived in Vietnam in February 1967, assigned to the 229th Assault Helicopter Battalion. They gave me 3 days to acclimate, then put me on flight status. My first mission was a combat assault, inserting infantry into a hot LZ. My aircraft commander, Captain Steve Morrison from Texas, had been flying in Vietnam for 9 months. Seemed ancient to me. Listen and learn, he told me before we took off. Vietnam will try to kill you in 100 different ways. Small arms fire, RPGS, mechanical failure, weather, running out of fuel, pilot error. Your job is to not let it. Simple advice, hard to follow. We flew every day, sometimes twice a day. Combat assaults, resupply missions, medevac runs, reconnaissance insertions. The Huey became an extension of my body. I knew every sound, every vibration, every quirk of the aircraft, could tell from the engine tone if something was wrong. The crew became family. My crew chief, Specialist Tommy Chen from San Francisco, 20 years old, kept the bird flying through mechanical issues that should have grounded us. My door gunner, PFC Marcus Williams from Mississippi, 19 years old, quiet kid who could put accurate fire on target while we were banking hard and taking rounds. We lost our first aircraft in April. Not my crew, another team from our unit. They took an RPG during a combat assault. Watched them spiral down into the jungle, black smoke trailing. No survivors. I knew the pilot, Captain Jack Reynolds from Ohio. Good guy. 2 kids back home. Dead at 28 because someone with a rocket launcher got lucky. That's when it started to feel real. Not an adventure, not a job, just survival. Every mission could be the last one. Every takeoff might end in a crash. Every LZ might have the RPG that kills you. But we kept flying. That's what you do. The grunts on the ground needed us, needed resupply, needed medevac, needed extraction when things went bad. We were their lifeline, so we flew. March 15th, 1968. 2 weeks after the Tet Offensive ended. The country was still a mess, fighting everywhere, units scattered, supply lines disrupted. We'd been flying constant missions for weeks. The birds were worn out. The crews were exhausted. But the operations tempo didn't slow down. They scrambled us at 0600 for an emergency medevac. Company of Marines pinned down near Khe Sanh. Multiple casualties needed immediate extraction. The area was hot, heavy enemy contact, LZ under fire. Morrison was my aircraft commander. Chen was crew chief. Williams on the door gun. We'd been flying together for almost a year. Knew each other's moves. Trusted each other completely. Fuel's at 3/4. Chen reported during pre-flight. Should be plenty for the mission. Should be. In Vietnam, should be didn't mean much. We took off at 06:15. The flight to Khe Sanh area took 40 minutes. Beautiful morning, clear sky, visibility unlimited. You could see the jungle stretching forever, broken up by bomb craters and defoliated zones. From altitude, Vietnam looked almost peaceful. Then we descended toward the coordinates, and the illusion shattered. Smoke rising from the jungle, artillery impacts, tracers arcing up from the trees. The LZ was a small clearing, maybe 50 meters across, surrounded by triple canopied jungle. The Marines were dug in at the edge, taking fire from 3 sides. -2, this is lead, Morrison called to our wingman. LZ is hot. We'll go in first. You cover. Roger, lead. We made our approach, dropped down fast, flaring hard to bleed off speed. Rounds were hitting us before we touched down. That metallic ping, ping, ping of small arms fire hitting the aircraft. Williams returned fire, the M60 hammering away. We're taking hits, Chen yelled from the back. How many wounded? Morrison asked the Marines. 6, 4 litter, 2 walking. We loaded them fast. Marines dragging their wounded across the clearing while enemy fire kicked up dirt around them. One Marine, kid couldn't have been 20, got hit while running toward us. Just dropped. His buddies grabbed him, threw him in the back. We're loaded, Chen called. Morrison pulled pitch. The Huey strained, overloaded with wounded, and climbed out. Rounds were still hitting us. I heard something break. Mechanical failure somewhere in the aircraft. The engine cough. Did the engine just cough? I asked. Fuel pressure's dropping, Morrison said, eyes on the gauges. We cleared the LZ, gained some altitude. The engine smoothed out. Fuel pressure came back. I looked at the fuel gauge. 3/4 had dropped to half. Too fast, way too fast. We're losing fuel, I said. Morrison checked the gauges. Fuel line must have taken a hit. We're leaking. The options were immediately clear. We were 40 minutes from base. At this rate, we'd run out of fuel in maybe 20 minutes. With 6 wounded Marines in the back who'd die if we didn't get them to a hospital. Nearest friendly position, Morrison asked. I checked the map. Firebase Viper, 15 miles northeast. Can we make it? I did the math in my head. Fuel consumption, distance, leak rate. Maybe, if the leak doesn't get worse. Morrison made the decision. We're going for Viper. Alert them we're coming in emergency. I got on the radio. Told Firebase Viper we were inbound with wounded aircraft damaged, possible fuel emergency. They rogered, said they'd have medical ready. We flew east, watched the fuel gauge drop, half, quarter. The Marines in back were quiet. They could hear us talking, knew something was wrong. The ones who were conscious anyway. 2 of them were unconscious, bleeding bad. Another was crying, clutching his stomach where he'd been hit. Fuel's at 1/8, I said. 10 miles to Viper. The engine coughed again. Ran rough for a few seconds, then smoothed out. It's starving, Morrison said. Sucking air from the tank. 5 miles out. The fuel gauge read empty. The low fuel warning light came on. That red light that means you have maybe 5 minutes before the engine quits. Firebase Viper. This is Medevac 7-3. We are emergency fuel. Request immediate landing clearance. Roger 7-3, you are cleared. Medical is standing by. 3 miles. The engine was running rough now. Coughing. Fighting. Chen was in the back, probably praying. Williams, too. The Marines had figured out what was happening. The conscious ones were scared. Hell, we were all scared. 2 miles. The engine coughed hard. Ran rough for 10 seconds. I could see the fire base ahead, sandbags and bunkers on a hilltop. The helipad was clear. 1 mile. The engine was dying. I could feel it. like the helicopter was giving up, running on fumes and prayer. "We're not going to make it," Morrison said quietly. He was right. I could see it in the gauges, feel it in the aircraft. We were going to crash short of the firebase, maybe half a mile short, into jungle we couldn't auto-rotate into, with 6 wounded Marines in the back. The engine quit at half a mile out. No warning, no final cough, just silence. The sudden, terrifying silence of dead engine and rotors in auto-rotation. We were at 200 feet, over triple canopy jungle, and we were falling. Morrison immediately entered auto-rotation. Collective down, drop the nose, use gravity and rotor inertia to maintain lift. But auto-rotation requires altitude and somewhere to land. We had neither. "Mayday, mayday, mayday, 7-3 is going down, half-mile north of Viper." The trees were coming up fast, too fast. I could see individual branches now. The jungle that looked peaceful from altitude looked like death up close. "Brace for impact," Morrison yelled. The Marines in back were screaming. Chen was strapped in, holding on. Williams, too. I had my hands on the controls, helping Morrison, even though there was nothing we could do. We were going to hit the trees, and whatever happened after that was up to physics and luck. We hit the canopy at about 60 knots. The rotor blades sheared off immediately, metal screaming as they hit trees and broke apart. The tail boom separated. The helicopter was disintegrating around us. Then we hit the ground. The impact was beyond description, like being inside a car crash and an explosion simultaneously. Everything breaking, tearing, compressing. The windscreen shattered. I felt my harness dig into my shoulders and chest, felt something hit my head. The world spun, tilted, went dark for a second. Then silence, broken only by the hiss of ruptured hydraulic lines and the moans of the wounded. I was alive. Couldn't believe it, but I was alive. My head hurt. My chest hurt. Everything hurt. But I was breathing, conscious, moving my limbs. "Morrison?" I called out. "Here." His voice was weak. "Legs are pinned. Can't move." I unbuckled, tried to turn around. The cockpit was compressed, twisted. Morrison was trapped by the collapsed instrument panel. His legs were crushed between metal, blood everywhere. "Chen? Williams?" "I'm okay," Chen called from the back. "Williams is unconscious. The Marines, Jesus Christ." I crawled into the back. The cargo bay was a nightmare. The impact had thrown everyone around. 2 of the Marines were clearly dead, necks broken, crushed by shifting equipment. The others were alive, but hurt worse than before. One was screaming, another was silent, in shock. Williams was slumped against the transmission deck, bleeding from his head, still breathing. Chen had a gash on his arm, but was mobile. "We have to get them out," I said. Aircraft could catch fire. We started pulling the wounded out of the wreckage. The dead we left. Nothing we could do for them. Morrison was trapped. Couldn't move him without equipment. The conscious Marines helped, dragging themselves and their buddies away from the crashed helicopter. Got everyone about 30 yards away, 7 of us alive, hurt but mobile. Morrison trapped in the wreck. 2 Marines dead in the back. "I'll go back for Morrison," I said. "Dave, you can't move him alone," Chen said. "You need hydraulic cutters or something." "I can't leave him." But before I could go back, I heard it. The distinctive whump, whump, whump of helicopter rotors. Looked up and saw 2 Hueys circling overhead. Our wingman and a search and rescue bird. 7-3, this is Rescue 1-2. We see your crash site. Survivors? I grabbed the survival radio from my vest. 1-2, this is 7-3 actual. 7 survivors on the ground, 4 wounded, pilot still trapped in aircraft. Need immediate extraction and cutting equipment. Roger, we're putting down rescue team now. They lowered a pararescue team on jungle penetrators, metal devices that punched through the canopy. 3 PJs came down, professional, efficient, assessed the wounded, started triage, called for extraction baskets. One of them, Sergeant Williams, no relation to my door gunner, went to the crashed Huey with cutting tools. Came back 15 minutes later. "Your aircraft commander didn't make it," he said quietly. "He was alive when I got to him, but internal injuries. He died while I was trying to cut him out." Morrison. Steve Morrison from Texas. My aircraft commander, my friend, the guy who'd taught me how to survive in Vietnam. Dead in the wreckage of our helicopter because we ran out of fuel half a mile short of safety. They extracted us by hoist, got the wounded Marines up first, then Chen and Williams and me, left Morrison's body in the wreck, would come back for him later with a recovery team. At the hospital at Phu Bai, they checked us over. I had a concussion, broken ribs, various cuts and bruises. Chen had a deep cut on his arm that needed stitches. Williams had a skull fracture, was unconscious for 3 days before he woke up. Of the 6 Marines we'd extracted, 4 survived. 2 died. 1 from his wounds during the crash, 1 during surgery. The 2 who died in the crash brought the total to 4 dead Marines, plus Morrison. 5 dead because we ran out of fuel. The accident investigation took 2 weeks. They recovered the wreckage, examined the fuel system, found the bullet hole that severed the fuel line. Concluded the crash was due to combat damage, not pilot error or maintenance failure. No one was at fault. But I was at fault. That's what I kept thinking. I was the co-pilot. I should have caught the fuel leak earlier, should have insisted we land at a closer position, should have done something different. Morrison's death was on me. The Marines' deaths were on me. We'd crashed half a mile short of safety because I'd miscalculated the fuel consumption. Half a mile. 2 more minutes and we'd have made it. But we didn't make it, and Morrison died trapped in a helicopter I'd been flying. They gave me 2 weeks off flight status, medical recovery, but also psychological. They wanted to make sure I was okay to fly again after a crash. The flight surgeon talked to me, asked the standard questions. Was I having nightmares, flashbacks, anxiety about flying? Yes, to all of the above. But I told him I was fine, ready to get back in the air. Because what else was I going to do? Sit on base and think about Morrison dying while guys like Chen and Williams kept flying? They put me back on flight status in April. New aircraft commander, Captain John Davis from California. Good pilot, but it wasn't the same. Morrison and I had flown together for a year. Davis and I were just flying. The missions continued. Combat assaults, medevacs, resupply runs. Every time I looked at the fuel gauge, I'd see it dropping toward empty. Every time we took fire, I'd listen for that engine cough. Every LZ looked like the last one, the one where everything went wrong. I started making mistakes. Nothing major, but enough to notice. Miscalculating approaches, missing radio calls, getting disoriented. The crew noticed. Davis noticed. "You good, Dave?" he asked after a mission in May. "Yeah, fine. You don't seem fine. You seem distracted, somewhere else." He was right. I was somewhere else. Half a mile north of Firebase Viper, watching Morrison die, watching Marines die, watching the fuel gauge read empty while we fell into the jungle. My breaking point came in June 1968. 3 months after the crash, we got tasked for a medevac mission, company of infantry in heavy contact, multiple casualties, needed immediate extraction. Standard mission. We'd done hundreds of them. But as we approached the LZ, all I could think about was fuel. Checked the gauge constantly, calculated consumption rate, measured distance to alternates. "You're checking that fuel gauge a lot," Davis said. "Just being careful." "Dave, we're fine. Plenty of fuel." But I couldn't stop checking. The gauge became my entire world. Every minute, every mile, watching it drop, waiting for the engine to cough, waiting for the crash. We made the pickup, loaded 4 wounded, started back to base. I was checking the fuel gauge every 30 seconds. Still plenty, more than half a tank. But all I could see was the needle dropping. All I could hear was Morrison saying, "We're not going to make it." Halfway back, I started hyperventilating. Couldn't catch my breath. The cockpit felt too small, too close, like the walls were pressing in, like we were falling again. Dave, what's wrong? Can't breathe." Davis took the controls. "I've got the aircraft. Chen, get up here." Chen came forward, helped me with my harness. I was gasping, shaking, completely losing it. Panic attack, I realized later. In the moment, I thought I was dying. Davis flew us back to base. Landed. Medical took me straight to the hospital. Panic attack, they said. Combat stress reaction. They grounded me immediately. The flight surgeon was sympathetic but firm. "You've been flying with untreated PTSD for 3 months. You need to stop before you get someone killed." "I'm fine. I just need..." "You're not fine. You had a panic attack in flight. You could have crashed the aircraft. You could have killed your crew and the wounded you were carrying. I'm grounding you indefinitely." They sent me to a psychiatric unit in Japan. Spent 2 weeks there, talking to doctors, taking pills, trying to process what happened. They diagnosed me with acute stress reaction, PTSD, survivor's guilt. Gave me medication. Said I needed long-term treatment. The Army medical boarded me in August. Honorable discharge, medical reasons, VA disability for PTSD. At 24 years old, my career was over. The thing I loved most, flying, was taken away because I couldn't handle the trauma of watching my aircraft commander die. I came home to L.A. in September 1968. My family was relieved I was alive. My father, who'd worked in aircraft manufacturing during World War II, was proud I'd served. My mother just wanted her son home safe. I couldn't tell them what happened. Couldn't explain that I'd crashed a helicopter, watched Morrison die, gotten 4 Marines killed because we ran out of fuel. Couldn't describe the panic attacks, the nightmares, the constant fear. "How was Vietnam?" people would ask. It was fine. Glad to be home. Fine. Nothing was fine. I tried getting a civilian pilot's license. Thought maybe I could fly commercially or traffic helicopters or anything. Went up with an instructor once. As soon as we lifted off, I had a panic attack. Couldn't breathe. Had to land immediately. The instructor was understanding. "You might not be ready yet. Give it time." I never went back. The thing I'd loved since I was 12 years old, flying, was gone. Taken by the war, by the crash, by the trauma. Tried other jobs. Mechanic, warehouse work, construction. Nothing stuck. Couldn't focus, couldn't care. Every job felt meaningless compared to flying, compared to what I'd lost. Started drinking. Helped with the nightmares. Helped me forget the sound of Morrison's voice saying, "We're not going to make it." Helped me sleep without seeing the fuel gauge reading empty, the trees coming up, the helicopter disintegrating around me. Chen tried to keep in touch. He'd survived his tour, came home, was working as a mechanic in San Francisco. Called me once in 1970. "How you doing, sir?" "I'm okay." "You?" "Adjusting. It's hard, you know, being back, knowing what we know." "Yeah. I think about Morrison sometimes, about that day." "You ever think about it?" "Every day, every hour, every time I closed my eyes. Sometimes. None of it was your fault, you know. The investigation cleared everyone. We all did our jobs. It was just bad luck. Combat. Bad luck. Combat. Words that were supposed to make it okay that Morrison died, that 4 Marines died, that I'd spent 3 months flying with untreated PTSD before breaking completely. Thanks, Chen. Take care of yourself. I never talked to him again. Williams wrote me once from a VA hospital in Mississippi. The head injury from the crash had left him with permanent damage, seizures, memory problems, chronic pain. He was angry at the Army, at the war, at me. You were the pilot. You should have gotten us down safe. Morrison died because you couldn't hold it together. I read that letter 100 times. He was right. I was the co-pilot. My job was to support Morrison, to catch mistakes, to make sure we survived. I'd failed. Morrison died. Williams was permanently damaged. The Marines died. My fault. All of it. It's been 6 years since the crash. I'm 30 years old. Never flew again. Never will. Work odd jobs, drink too much. Avoid helicopters. Can't stand to look at them. Can't stand the sound of rotors. Every time I hear one, I'm back in that cockpit, watching the fuel gauge read empty, hearing the engine die, feeling the impact. Morrison died at 28. Good pilot, good man. Had a wife and 2 kids in Texas. They wrote me once, thanking me for trying to save him. I never wrote back. What was I supposed to say? That I failed. That their husband and father died because we ran out of fuel half a mile short of safety. The Marines who died, I don't even know all their names. They were just wounded we were trying to save. But they died because we crashed. Because the fuel line took a hit. Because we tried to make it to Viper instead of landing somewhere closer. Because I miscalculated. People thank me for my service sometimes. See my discharge papers, or hear I was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. They call me a hero, tell me I did my part. I'm not a hero. Heroes save lives. I watched my aircraft commander die trapped in wreckage. Got Marines killed trying to save them. Had a panic attack in flight and nearly crashed another helicopter. Got medically discharged because I couldn't handle the trauma. What I am is broken, grounded, unable to fly, unable to function, unable to be the person I was before Vietnam, before the crash, before watching Morrison die. The war took my career, took my purpose, took the one thing I loved more than anything. Left me with nightmares and panic attacks and the crushing weight of knowing I failed when it mattered most. Chief Warrant Officer David Martinez died in that crash, too. Just took his body longer to stop working than Morrison's. The person who came back to L.A., he's just going through the motions, existing, waiting for the day when the trauma finally finishes what the crash started. I used to love flying, used to love the freedom of it, the control, the purpose, being able to help soldiers, to save lives, to make a difference. Now, I can't even look at a helicopter without having a panic attack. Can't hear rotors without being back in that cockpit, fuel gauge reading empty, Morrison saying, "We're not going to make it." He was right. We didn't make it. Half a mile short. 2 more minutes. That's all we needed, but we didn't have 2 more minutes. Didn't have the fuel, didn't have the luck. So Morrison died. Marines died. And I came home broken, unable to fly, unable to be whole. The helicopter that crashed 6 years ago took everything. My career, my purpose, my future. Left me with nothing but nightmares and guilt and the sound of an engine dying in my head. I didn't die in that crash. But I never came home either. I'm still there, half a mile north of Firebase Viper, in the jungle, in the wreckage, watching the fuel gauge read empty, watching it all fall apart forever.